brands have always been about more than the offer of price and quality, always, in my opinion. And if you look at the really old adverts for soap, for example, I was looking at that in a small collection in Provence during the summer. There's always been something subliminal about soap being associated with small children and flowers or whatever. So there's always something more. I think the purpose issue is therefore part of the aura of a product or of a brand. And I think if the advertising community is saying brand purpose is the new buzzword, that's good, because it means people are aware that the brand in a market economy can be extremely powerful. So wouldn't it be good that it had a purpose which was additional to, compatible with the bottom line? So all of that fits very well where I think a sustainable market economy in a society like Europe has to go. The question then is much more, I think, traditional. Can I have a purpose that is true to the brand, and can I remain true to the purpose? I mean, I think that's a big challenge. And the more complicated brand purpose becomes, the more it has to be owned not just by the marketing and advertising conversation, but by the boardroom as a whole. Otherwise, it will be a nice idea, but over several cycles, you'll get tripped up. The most recent example I could give is the new, well, at least in the cinemas in Brussels since the summer, the new Dove advert, where you see a continuation of their advert about, feel good about yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's done still in a quite sort of friendly, playful way. It's intrinsically a good piece of theatre. So there's a purpose which has legs and continues to engage you with the brand. Do I then rush off and change my soap purchasing patterns? Personally not, but that's the most recent example I would quote. I think that if you look at the advertising debate on both sides of the Atlantic in the area of personal products and body image, there's a lot of criticism of the fashion and glamour and cosmetics world that it exploits our weak and negative feelings to sell stuff to us that we might not want. And I think to flip that over and say, well, our purpose truly is to make people feel better, and how can we do that? That affects the context within which any sort of more precise regulation will take place. Mm-hmm. So I think it's almost pro bono as well, that within the niche, with even for the competitors, the fact that somebody like Dove is saying cosmetics can be branded and sold in a way that's not negative about body image, I think that's probably good for the sector. What we've learned is that the way people answer this sort of question in an interview and the way they behave as consumers may be different. So there is a tension, and it's very natural that consumers should say, yes, I aspire to that, but don't expect me to pay more. And marketers will say, well, if they're not paying more, is it serious? And I think that my personal conviction is that it's not only the way that consumers rationally spend their money that tells you what society really wants. In other words, the whole behavioral economics school of the last decade is saying it's not only the money signals that tell you what society is about, and therefore at some stage I would say the corporate strategists need to care about the gap between what marketing and consumer opinion polls are saying, because that gap may be how can I say, it can be sort of consumers deluding themselves on the one hand, in which case the marketers are right, or it can be society sending you a signal which says, irrespective of what happens at the cash till, your brand value may be affected by that gap in a negative way. And that's my personal conviction, that a lot of the mistrust that then fires up regulatory pressure comes from that gap. And I would say that in this, as in every other aspect of commercial life, assume the customer's right. If 75% of consumers say, I aspire to that, how do we fulfill that, as opposed to saying, no, they're not serious?